thought maybe I would just start out by maybe starting with you having been a teenager with me. Hey, where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Rio.
You were, okay, so
Yeah.
we're both Cariocas. Okay. I remember as a teenager in the 60s that there was a very vibrant film, for us film was like a big thing, and you could go to films everywhere. We had a beautiful cinema around the corner from where I lived in Leblon, the Miramar, which had all these wonderful films from the 50s and 40s and contemporary cinema, and that's where you got to know Hitchcock and all these various people, including Godard. And there also were, well, there was the dominant cinema, I think, was American. There was also British and French and Italian and some Spanish cinema, some a little bit Latin American cinema. There was also Brazilian cinema. As I remember, there were some good films that we liked, and there was a lot of other ones that we didn't necessarily think were all that great. And I remember you used to go to, you would go to a film you thought you wanted to see, but you also had to sit through a Brazilian film that looked like it had been made in about 25 minutes somewhere. Not always. Sometimes looked like a Marx Brothers film, which was intentional at times, and other times maybe wasn't intentional. And all of the Brazilian films seem to try to imitate the sort of classical American type style of films, as I remember. We used to really like the good Brazilian films, and we used to sort of be in awe of some of the low-budget ones, although you could be more at awe in some of the American low-budget ones like Beach Bingo something, or Gidget something. So I was wondering, at this time, with this going on, suddenly comes this. And I'm wondering if we could start by you giving us kind of a contextualizing. What was happening at that time? Why were these things happening? The situation of the Brazilian cinema, maybe a little history of Brazilian cinema, and bring us up to this point where how this happened and why this happened.
Well, let's have a try.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think it's we have to bear in mind that Glauber Rocha doesn't happen alone. I mean, he's not someone who comes and changes the cinema in Brazil while nothing else is happening. No. Brazil lived in the late 50s and the early 60s a very important moment, be it on the economic side, on the cultural side, or the historical side of the country. Perhaps only another moment was so important for Brazil, particularly from the point of view of the history of the Brazilian culture, as that period of the late 60s, late 50s and early 60s, and that was the Modern Art Week in 1922. And because by 1922, what we saw was exactly that visual artists, poets, novelists, people from theater, everyone, musicians, everyone seemed to unite and to begin discussing what was to be a Brazilian. So that was a very important moment, and it came exactly when Brazil had already 30, 40 years of being a republic. After being an European empire, became an American republic. After being for many, many years a country where you had only the slaves brought from Africa and the few Portuguese